everyone. So I welcome you to the module 20th under the course of UN SDGs, and this is about SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. So in this one we will see about consumerism, which has risen many-fold in the latest last few decades and maybe 1 century also. So some facts and figures. Electronic waste grew by 38%, but less than 20% is recycled. So well, this is a new age, like a phenomena, new age, like a material, new age components. Okay, so let's go a little bit, behind in time. I think previously also we have discussed when when electricity wasn't yet discovered, and we didn't knew how to use electricity and all of that. There was no electrical and such gadgets. Okay, so before this time, how the life was, if you just imagine before this, right, before electricity. Well, there was no dependency on any sort, because there was no gadget itself. We didn't knew how to make use of electricity, right? So mostly things were nature based or very simple, humble, human man made, using wooden things, using other metal based things, or maybe a glass and other stuff. But there wasn't any particular electronic or electrical gadgets, for example, no electrical lighting. There was only lighting based out of either a natural lighting, day lighting, or maybe oil based lamps and some other provisions, right? So what had changed after this, if you see, and if you look around your room and see, perhaps any or all of these materials and things we are surrounded with are somewhere the products of electricity. They have consumed electricity at some point of time, whether in a form of maybe a motorized a machine, or maybe an appliance, or maybe an heavy equipment, or maybe heavy machinery, or maybe some a factory, some manufacturing facility, or even transportation, right? And all of this somewhere they are touching because of this, and this has actually facilitated a lot. And from an age of scarcity to an age of abundance, we have actually traveled into, right? So that is the journey. So well, this was also not good, age of scarcity, when people were not able to meet even basic needs of a clothing, right, or other stuff. Okay, even food supplies also, they were not in such an abundance. There used to be an age of a deprivation, and things were not available so easily, right? Things were not there also. I think very short supply of resources was there, and and a majority of population was deprived of most of the resources. So well, this electricity and overall, if you see, industrialization as a process has brought a kind of age of abundance and fulfillment. Okay, so definitely it's an amazing achievement from a scarcity to abundance, and scarcity to fulfillment we have reached. And now things are very much compared to the older ages. Well, still there are people who cannot afford a lot of things, but at least compared to the previous ages, we have things available in the market, right? If you ask for something, it may be there, or maybe it is there in a variety of options also. Just remember when our parents or grandparents got their first vehicles, there used to be just one brand, like a Maruti in India, or if two-wheeler, then maybe Bajaj, Chetak, or maybe one or two more, right? There wasn't many option, right? And there used to be several months or years of waiting if you want to buy one. But now you carry your cash, and you can get any of like a such things immediately. It is all available on your disposal, right? So much like in the clothing also. Earlier like people used to wear like maybe pieces of dhoti, or maybe long hand woven like garments. But now like there are so many tailor made apparel and things are available. In the footwear also, people used to walk like a barefoot in the older times. Only few used to like wear maybe wooden made like that khanau in Hindi it is called, or wooden slippers, or of leather handmade by that like the person cobbler. Okay, and yeah, so very few. But nowadays, with the advent of like a synthetic yarns and like fabrics and garments, okay, all of these things are possible, and now these things are available in abundance. One can buy a slipper, a pair of slippers in I think less than 100 rupees also, right? And overall purchasing power has also improved, uh, so all of these like things, if you see, have contributed in fulfillment. If you ask for something, it is there. And yeah, with your like in increasing purchasing power, you will be in a position to like get it. At least the majority of the population is able to get it, if not all, right? So this all has like led to the age of fulfillment. Now what is happening, till the fulfillment of your needs, it is all right, it is perfectly all right. But the moment it is going towards like a more than this, like I want more and more and more and more and many more. If you are getting like a greedy, to meet your like demands, to meet your like a taste and interest and all of that. Okay, if it is going beyond needs, because interest, choices and all of those things, they carry little bit of like hint of like a luxury, right? Because like there are so many things now. There is like a choice, there is a selection, right? And now we are entering into an age where things are like experience based. Okay, so needs are fulfilled, this age is gone. Okay, now things are like experience based, lifestyle, aspirations, right? And now people want to fulfill like these, they want to experience best of the best, they want to like have a lifestyle where like they can spend at their leisure, they have like high aspirations. Well, there is nothing wrong, but the problem is it becomes wrong when this goes into overdrive, and when it enters into the overconsumption. Okay, so what you need, basic need, okay, then luxury. Okay, so of course this is like the problematic situation. Well, it's not about the cost like one can bear, or the price one can pay for. Okay, it is about the cost on the other stuff also, like the monetary cost you can pay. But how about like the cost which is coming to the environment, the air pollution it is generating, the soil pollution, the noise pollution, right? The resources it is exhausting, the pollution it is creating, once it is discarded, what about those aspects? Like, who is paying for that? Nobody, not even you, right? So the whole environment, collectively, this whole planet, and including the humans and all other animals and species of flora and fauna, they are all paying that price, right? So this becomes the problem. Okay, and this is what actually is mandated through this SDG, that responsible consumption. Well, nobody is asking you to reduce your consumption, whatever basic needs, you please go ahead with that. But you should never go into the over consuming things, more than what is needed, or you should not kind of try consuming a lot of things since you are able to just like afford it, or you are able to just buy it. That's not a responsible region. That's why like this word like responsible, one should have like a sense of responsibility towards consuming things, no matter what it is. Okay, so responsible consumption and production. So it's not just consumption only, it's about production also. Like a lot of companies and manufacturing units and entities, organizations, they are producing stuff which are not so good to the environment or society or the place, or other like natural elements, like air, water, soil, earth, etc., right? So they must also take care of like a proper ways of producing things, okay, in a responsible manner. So fixing an accountability of each and every one, right? That is the like a mandate. I hope you are able to get it. So if you see this, well, with the new age, like electronics and internet, computers and all of these things, smartphones, they are the new age, like items and products. Okay, and their, like a usage is rising, like every year, in a very, like a handsome, like a percentage in, and double digits, every year it is rising. I think every part of the world, uh, well, of course, it is, adding a lot to our facilities. For example, like a computing. So computing, I think, is essential, for almost anything and everything today. Okay, but again, the waste it is generating, all of those smartphones and computers and entertainment devices, music, like music systems, TVs, combine all. There are, hundreds and thousands of electronic products, now we are surrounded with. Okay, all of them put together, if you see, they qualify as one, like a category, electronic waste. Okay, and that waste is rising 38%, by, like electronic waste grew by 38%, so this is the rate at which it is, like rising. So you, if you see, it is rising, like a tremendously at 38%, right? And out of which, only less than, like 20% is recycled. That means 38% ka 80%, more than 80% is not recycled. Where is it going then? Okay, that's the question. Where is it going? Because, electronic waste actually constitutes of, a lot of metals, heavy metals, like a plastics, different, classes of plastics, right? And like many other stuff, like a rubber, right, etc. Many other insulated, like insulations, right, and all of those things. Okay, and where are they going? They are going into the, like dump yards. Okay, landfills, maybe at the bottom of lakes and rivers, finally they may be reaching to the oceans, right? And the repercussions, well, we all know, like what constitutes, of this electronic waste and how bad they are. Maybe, individually you can search, about each and every, like element used in, like electronics. Okay, you will come to know like how bad they can be. Okay, a pure metal, in its, elemental form is okay, unless it is radioactive and all of that. I am talking about, like metals. Okay, so a pure metal in its elemental form is not going to harm, particularly. But since electronic waste is composed of, several, like types of metals in several ratios and proportions, sometimes alloys, sometimes, like a transistor and all of those, circuitry parts, they actually, sometimes consume heavy metals, sometimes, like some other, like elements like, mercury, right, cobalt, nickel, right. So these are actually not so friendly, like elements also, right. They have a, direct impact on human health and the health of other organism also, other living beings also, like, like animals and plants, right. So since they are going to just, get thrown, in open in the whole, like ecosystem. Okay, that is becoming, like the problem. Okay, there is so much of waste, like so much of waste, it is going, beyond, like a manageable, like a limit. Okay, and as you can see over here, more than 80%, of the waste is not, getting recycled. That's the, like a problematic. And this is just about electronics. There are many other categories of products also. For example, I mentioned garments, clothing. Okay, so clothing, if you see, is one of the, largest, like a bulk producers of waste. The garments and the fabric, what we, like a throw, right, that actually constitutes the, like one of the, like a major, like a bulk. Okay, apart from that, many other types of, like a products, like a stuff, whatever you are seeing, like furnitures, right, and like other plastic related, like items, like, plastic bottles, other vessels, right, and all of these stuff. So yeah, so overall, I hope now you have understood. So what could be the goal over here? To ensure sustainable consumption and production pattern. Very direct, to the, like a title of, like this SDG. Okay, to make sure, like this is sustainable and responsible. Okay, it is, responsibly being consumed and being made. Okay, on both. Why? I think, reasons we saw, but let's read it. Economic and social progress over the last century has been accompanied by environmental degradation that is endangering the very systems on which our future development and very survival depend. If this ecosystem is getting threatened, okay, then what happens? All of this comfort and luxury is not going to help us. COVID-19 offers an opportunity to develop recovery plans that will reverse current trend and shift our consumption and production patterns to a more sustainable course. A successful transition will mean improvements in resource efficiency, consideration of the entire life cycle of economic activities, and achieve engagement in multilateral environmental agreements. So everywhere it is being talked about. If you see resource efficiency, improving on the resource efficiency, considering the entire life cycle of economic activities, and active engagement in multilateral environmental agreements. Okay, so everywhere from resource exhaustion, whenever we start take mining ores, minerals, or stuff from the nature. Okay, from there itself the impact actually begins, because we are seeing the earth's resources as our own useful resources. We are trying to make use of it. So that is why if you see in the word resource in today's term has an economic connotation, like economic utilitarian, like a connotation attached to it, right? So that means the things which are economically useful for us in some way, okay, we call it as a resource, and rest of the things we do not call it as a resource, right? So there is a like a human driven like a interest into this. So we are seeing things with a lens that it is useful for me or it is not useful for me, and whatever is useful is now getting like exhausted to its limits. So there are like several examples from around the world on any and every like element what is like useful for human society for its exhaustion. Yesterday I gave example of like rivers. Like the water of the river belongs to the river, right? But before the river actually reaches to its like a ending point, it meets in the ocean or wherever, okay, we are drawing and drawing and drawing most of its water for irrigation purposes. Well, irrigation is an economic activity suitable for humans. We are drawing water for factories, for manufacturing facilities, even for our drinking water, even for meeting our like a household demand of like a water, house core activities and stuff. Okay, so if you see, we claim our right on a natural resource. Okay, a river is not owned by humans, right? We do not own like this planet. So how can we say this is like an our resource and we have all the rights to exhaust it, right? That is the problem. Okay, so if you need it respectfully, you can consume a little bit, but you should not consume it to that extent that it gets depleted of all of its resources, because that's like like killing the river, right? And similarly, all other like things and resources and minerals and whatever. Okay, like trees, for example. Now we are felling the trees like at the greatest extent like that ever, and you may be aware I think during after the last ice age, this is the most catastrophic situation where like a huge percentage of Earth's forest cover is has already been depleted, and it is getting depleted also at a much faster rate. Okay, and yeah, and that is bringing a lot of issues, like who is going to get impacted, like all of the living beings, including like humans. Okay, so we are going to get ourselves into a very tricky situation. We have already landed into that situation for information, and we are putting all other life forms also of this planet into that catastrophic position without any of their faults. We are putting this whole planet into that catastrophic situation. I'll come to like this point. Who is this we? Well, we doesn't means all the humans. That is a wrong like a notation. We doesn't include all the humans. The people living in in the villages or rural like areas or tribals having very less impact, almost no impact, or maybe a positive impact, not negative impact. Okay, how can we like help them into this V group? Definitely they are not there. So the communities, the countries, the people who are personally or individually or collectively responsible for this mess, must be held accountable. That's why this accountability also cannot be termed as like a humans, because humans include every human, right? But not every human is responsible. So this responsibility needs to be fixed in its like a proper like a manner, right? And the entities and the persons and the countries must be held accountable. For example, several countries, if you see, who are in the top list of like impacting, like like 1, 2, 3, you may be aware, which is the largest like impacting country on this planet is the Qatar, right, from the Middle East. Okay, so Qatar's like every per capita impact is the extremely high compared to the rest of the like a world and developing world, or maybe underdeveloped world. Okay, so why underdeveloped world countries are bearing the brunt? That is the question, right? So it's a valid question. It must be addressed, because the countries which are responsible at like a position 1, position 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that order, must be held responsible. Countries and like people who have negative impact on this planet, right? Then it becomes a judicious way of looking things. The people who are like responsible for such mess must actually correct like their course, right? So this is where like things like go into a very kind of like a different dimension, like how to correct this, because this is directly coming from like a consumption and production like systems. Okay, so it's very easy to monitor this also, and very direct. Well, what needs to change? There are many aspects of consumption that with simple changes can have a big impact on society as a whole. For example, the global material footprint, an indicator of the pressure put on environment to support economic growth and to satisfy material needs of people. Material footprint. Remember this? Grew by 17.4% to 85.9 billion metric tons in 2017 as compared to 2010. This is the growth, 17.4%, 85.9 billion metric tons, material footprint. What is material footprint? Is the indicator, that how much, like resources we actually, like exhaust, from the environment to meet our own, like material needs, So this is the, like a quantity we are talking about. Well, maybe for comprehension, you and me can relate like a few kgs, a few quintals, or maybe a few thousand, like a kilos. But how about comprehending these billion metric tons? Physically or like practically, we have no idea, because it's like like running into numbers. Like for currencies, if you see, we can relate in lakhs and perhaps a few crores. But if it goes in like this many lakh crore, or this many like $1 billion or $1 trillion, that becomes uncomprehensible like a figure where you and me become a kind of like we cannot relate it to our own sense. Like how many ice creams you can buy if you just like imagine in that way. Okay, so how many kind of maybe a water bottles, or maybe a piece of electronic or piece of furniture you can buy or you can make in these 85.9 billion metric tons of material or resources is really humongous figure, is becomes like unrelatable, right? So that's the like a mammoth quantity we are talking about at the global level. Okay, and it's really growing and growing and growing. There is no stopping to it, right? So this must come to a term where this is like sustainable and responsible to the environment, right? That is the like a far cry from like this SDG. Reducing food loss and waste can contribute to environmental sustainability by lowering production cost and increasing the efficiency of food systems. Currently, we lose 13.8% after harvesting and during transport, storage and processing alone. 13.8%, almost 14%, gets like a wasted, amounting to a cost of over $400 billion a year. This much of like a food it just gets wasted every year, you see, during transport, storage and processing, etc. Okay, so just imagine like these many 14% of this food costing 400 billion like a dollars. How many mouths it can feed, right? Just imagine. So how many poor people, how many people who are below poverty line, or who are facing, like a situation of hunger, or poverty, can get this, like a benefit directly without, any additional cost, just by saving it. Okay, because it is already there, it is produced, it is, like a manufactured, it is brought to the, like a storage and processing, and then it gets wasted. Okay, so just by saving, how many million mouths, can be fed, you can see, from this figure. Okay, that is why it is essential, that's why, this actually usual practice of, like a wasting at this percentage, like a must change. Can recycle and purify waters and rivers and lakes. Yeah. We are also polluting water faster than, like nature can recycle and purify. Like like natural elements, they have their own healing capacity, right? So they can heal, themselves if there is any issue, but it needs, some time. Okay, of course, over the time, it like rivers and lakes, like air also, gets, like a normalized, but there is a threshold. The rate at which, like we are polluting, the rate of pollution is outpacing, the rate at which it can heal itself, right? So that is the problem. The healing capacity, the healing also is happening, concurrently, but pollution is outpacing it, and pollution is running, like a farther, like a ahead, of the healing, like capacity. You can understand in this term, and that's why healing is not able to catch up with the pollution, because healing is limited, right? Healing has its own threshold, its own capacity, right? But pollution has no threshold. We are exceeding and exceeding, every year we are exceeding, like a previous, like a pollution ratings. And where is it leading to? Like we are all, aware of that situation. So this, mindless consumerism is responsible, for this mess. Just maybe, for an instance, maybe you can recall how many toys, you had when you were, like a child, what they were made of, from where they came, like who made them, what materials were used, to make them. What happened to, like those toys once you discarded, or they got actually damaged or bad, right? And compared to how many toys, the kids from this age have, any toy, if you refer to the, e-commerce, like a platforms, or in the shops, or like a shopping mall or markets, or here and there, things are abundantly available, on your disposal at very cheap prices. Okay, if you want to order one, they will give you another one free, right? There are so many offer, these many percentage off, this offer, that offer, blah blah. These are all actually marketing strategies, to lure the customer and increase the sales. But the after effect is the overconsumption, over using of, like these things, over, like impulse buying of things, sometimes not out of necessity but just for fun. Okay, so many things have actually changed, from the older times to now, which is causing, like all of this, and that is why, now we know what is responsible for this situation. Well, how can I help as a business at this point? In a business's interest to find new solutions that enable sustainable consumption and production patterns, a better understanding of environmental and social impacts of products and services is needed, both of product life cycles and how these are affected by use within lifestyles. Identifying hotspots within the value chain where interventions have the greatest potential to improve the environmental and social impact of system as a whole is a crucial first step. Innovation and design solutions can both enable and inspire individuals to lead more sustainable lifestyles, reducing impacts and improving well-being. So it is directly related, if you see, to everyone's lifestyle, because market works on, demand and supply. So market is trying to fulfill the demands which are raised by the consumers and customers, right? So if there is a more demand, there will be more supply. If there will be less demand, there will be, of course, to meet that, there will be lesser supply to meet it, right? Otherwise, what is the point of making more if there is less demand? Okay, so it's a direct, like a correlation of, like a demand and supply, right? So how one can, like a tweak, like this demand or a factor, so that there is less demand, so less, like a supply. So if you buy only like need based, like things, okay, there will be supply of only need based things, not luxury items or maybe over consumption items, right? saving directly onto all of those, like things what we are talking under, like this SDG, right? So this is as per, like a business. As a consumer also, there are two main ways to help: reducing your waste, your own waste, and being thoughtful about what you buy. Well, in the businesses, it mentioned, like a going for sustainable, like a practices also, making, things which are environmentally like a conscious, right, or environmentally, like easily recyclable, easily disposable, or they have like lesser impacting things. Okay, so going for like a LC analysis of your products before launch, so that even if you discard it, it's not going to have, like a negative impact on the ecology and so on, right? So as a business, as a like manufacturing unit, as a service, like a rendering unit, or any like a business entity, can adopt like those sustainable practices, to become a responsible manufacturer, or responsible production, or responsible service rendering, like a facility. For consumers also, like saving on waste, and yeah, being thoughtful about like your purchases. So you buy what you really need to buy. Okay, so the real need, like must be identified, for purchases, not out of impulse, you know not out of impulse, or just for the sake of it, or just because like some discount or some offer is there, some lucrative offer. Just remember, there is no one who, like, no company gives any free things, or like this. These are all mostly like marketing, like a gimmicks, to lure customers into purchasing more and more. Okay, so as far as like a company is driven by like a monetary like a interests, okay, it is going to be a problematic thing, for like being an environmentally conscious and all these things. So companies and production houses must be actually environmental, like a conscious also, apart from just making like a monetary profits. Ensure you don't throw away food, any sort of resources. It must not like a waste. Very importantly, saving food is amazingly essential. Just recall some pictures of like hungry people, hungry like children, from poor countries. For the sake of them, one must like save food as a precious resource. And reduce your consumption of plastic. One of the main pollutants, we know plastic is amazingly useful product, amazingly like amazing like a product, an innovative like a solution. Now plastic is available in most of the like a things what we are like using these days, even in electronics, medicine, like a packaging, everywhere. But it is one of the major reasons also of like a global pollution, right? So one should not use like a plastic based items like mindlessly. Yeah, one must carry a reusable bag, maybe a cloth bag or something, so that you can keep using it again and again for your grocery shopping or any other like such activity. Refusing to use plastic straws. Yeah, if you refer to like some pictures, they are very gruesome pictures where like animals have fallen prey to like a thrown plastic like items. And recycling plastic bottles are good ways to do our part every day. Making informed purchases also helps. For example, the textile industry today is the second largest polluter of clean water after agriculture, and many fashion companies exploit textile workers in the developing world. Yeah, you may be aware of like a bad working environments are very like a short supplied, or the deprived like a condition in which like these workers work in the developing countries to make like a garments for the big brands, and they sell it in the international market. They get more money, but these workers are like very less paid. If you can buy from sustainable and local sources, you can make a difference, as well as exercising pressure on businesses to adopt sustainable practices. So always remember, it is in the hands of consumers also, mostly, that how the planet is taking shape. Okay, so one must actually rectify their own habit of like a purchases and consumption and stuff, to deal with this problem. For more details, well, of course, you can refer like to this link.